I'm taking some much needed time to decompress and just sit in my own space for a while, because for my birthday activity, I went to this really large farmer's market with my sisters and my niece. And then we went to a plant shop and like a little grocery store. And then we're gonna be meeting in about an hour to go out for supper to one of my favorite vegan restaurants. The introvert in me right now is like, let me just have some time to myself, because I'm feeling like drained, you know, and it's not because they drain me. It's just like my social battery can only last so long before I start feeling really drained. Having conversations like starts becoming difficult for me because my brain is just feeling tired. And being an introvert is not being about shy. It's like when I hang out with people for a long period of time, or when I'm around a large group of people, it really just drains my energy. And being alone and being in solitude charges my battery back up. So that's just what I'm feeling right now. But on the other hand, I can hang out with my partner all day and I will never get drained. So I wonder if it's like when the body becomes like, maybe my nervous system is like just so regulated around him at this point that he just, like, I never get drained being around him. In fact, like, it even like charges me up and gives me energy. But it's interesting how hanging out with different people can have different effects on your energy and like what it feels like to the body. If you're interested in van life and if you're thinking of doing it for yourself, the first thing I would say to get clear on is what type of van life you want to be doing, because there's part-time van life and there's full-time van life. So when I first started van life, I actually started with a truck camper and then I moved to a van. If you want to watch why I sold my truck camper for a van, I'll have a video up there that I talk all about it. But otherwise, when I lived in a truck camper and then my van first starting out until now, I lived in it part-time. So I would live in my van during the winter. I would drive somewhere warmer for the winter, and then I would come back to my home province for the summertime. And that's what I've been doing up until a few months ago when I've started living in my van full-time. And this has been the goal for me throughout my entire van build, was to eventually get to a point where I could live in here full-time. So there are people who do van life part-time. Maybe they have a home base somewhere else and they go on camping trips in their van. Maybe they live in their van for half the year, the other half of the year they live somewhere else. And then there's the people who live in a van full-time no matter what, no home base anywhere, like the van is the home base. And I think it's important to get clear on what type of van life you want to be living, because that's going to impact your mindset and also what kind of van you purchase. The very first thing that I would suggest anyone interested in van life to do before you even begin looking for a van to buy, before you even begin thinking about a van to buy, you need to try out van life temporarily first to get experience with van life first and make sure it's something that you actually want to do before you go out there and buy a van that's already built out, or buy a van and begin renovating it, and then you live in the van for like a month and then you're like, oh, I kind of wasted all my money because I actually don't like living this way. Give it a try just for a little bit, just to make sure that you enjoy it and that you're able to actually live this way. So what I would suggest doing is renting a camper van. They can be a little bit pricey, but they do come fully renovated with all of the amenities in there that you could possibly need. I would recommend renting it out for however long you possibly can, based on how much you can budget. Live in there for a while, get a feel for the space, try sleeping in campsites, try boondocking, and just live in there as if the van was your own. Because the longer that you can live in the van, the more realistic it's going to feel for you. And such as if there's a shower in the van, try showering outside of the van. Try going to a rec center or a campsite, or bathing in a stream, or anything else that you can find. That way you will get a feel for what kinds of amenities in the van you can and can't live without, and it will also give you a feel for what living in a van is like, and if you actually enjoy living that way. So it's the next day, and I feel like I did way too much yesterday for one day. I got back to my van last night and I was like so drained. I just laid in my bed for like an hour just like staring at the ceiling before I could even get the energy to get up and brush my teeth. I feel like today is going to be a day of recovering my energy. I'm already feeling my energy coming back, so that's good. And today is just going to be a chill day, so I'm about to take my dog for a walk. If you are wanting to live in a van part-time, I think that's great. I think that's reasonable, and it is a great option for a lot of people, because I think a lot of us are really accustomed to having one stationary home, but then a lot of people want a camper that they can go camping in or take even extended trips in. So I think for a lot of people that's a great option. However, if you are interested in doing van life full-time, you need to get clear on the reasons why. I know van life has been trendy for the last few years, but that's not a good enough reason to want to get into it, because you see other people enjoying van life and you want to give it a try. It's like, okay, great, but you need to be realistic about this lifestyle, because it's not sunshine and rainbows all the time. Make a list of your own pros and cons for van life, and what are the pros of van life for you specifically as an individual, what are the cons of van life for you specifically as an individual, and do the pros outweigh the cons. Really make sure you're clear on why do you want to live in a van instead of a house. For me personally, I was first intrigued in van life probably 9-10 years ago. I just thought it was like the coolest thing, and I've always been into, not to sound like I'm not like other girls, but I've always been one to kind of live against the grain of what society expects of women specifically. And ever since I was young, I loved camping. I loved traveling. It's something that my dad really instilled in me from a young age. And so when I got older into adulthood, van life just kind of seemed like something that I would personally really love for myself. For me personally, when I think of why I have always wanted to live in a van full time and why I continue to live in my van full time, it just comes down to the fact that I don't like being stationary in my life. I find it really boring. And if I had to be stuck in one city, be tied down to like a house or an apartment, I just cannot picture myself living that way. And I feel like if I did live that way, I would not be the happiest. And one thing that I really, really love about van life is being able to have my home with me wherever I go. It's very convenient, and I think it's really cool and fascinating, and I just love it a lot. And if I want to pack up and go drive somewhere for fun, I can. There's nothing stopping me. I don't even have to pack anything because everything I own is already here. And obviously, one of the cons of van life is that especially if you're putting a lot of wear and tear on your vehicle, you are going to be having to making upgrades and taking care of your vehicle, which sometimes can cost a lot of money. So in some ways, you are trading to take care of your van instead of rent. You're kind of switching those two, which is what I found in my experience, especially owning an old van from 1991. I've really had to put some mechanical work into the van. The pros, obviously, you can take your home with you wherever you go. Everything you own is with you all of the time, which makes it very convenient. But then I feel like the pros, they have a con attached to it. Because everything you own is with you all of the time, if someone breaks into your vehicle, they have your entire house to choose from. So you need to be really careful about those types of things and put security measures in place for yourself. Another pro is being able to drive wherever you want at any time. The con on the other side of that is having a lack of a home base. Some people really prefer a home base, a safe place, a safe home that they know that they can come back to at the end of the day. For anxious people, for anxious girlies like myself, that is really important. And so van life for me is that's really one of the cons for me, is like if I'm boondocking, especially if it's in a place I don't know, my nervous system is really unregulated. I'm really paying attention to my surroundings at all times. And sometimes when you're like that, it feels like you can't relax and you can't enjoy where you are because you're just on a constant lookout. Like, especially being a solo woman living in a van alone is something that you have to think about like pretty much every single day. Another van life con for myself is that the van just has very limited space. For example, in my van, if I want to walk from my bedroom to my kitchen or like my bedroom to my toilet, it's literally like 2 steps. And so especially on work days when I'm working remote inside of my van for hours, I'm not even like getting any steps in. But yeah, for me, that's something I really have to keep in mind each day, is making the time each day to get up and out of my van. Just like leave my van, get some fresh air, get some steps in, do some kind of physical exercise, so that way I'm just not sitting in here all the time because it is such a small space. You need to make the time to get outside into the world each day, even more so than living in a house. So something I got from the farmer's market yesterday is this license plate. In my opinion, they have the prettiest license plate in all of Canada. This is now the outdated license plate for Nunavut, but I just think it is so gorgeous and so pretty. British Columbia also has really beautiful license plates, but the Nunavut one is one of my favorites. When I went to Hawaii and I went into this little gift shop and they had old used Hawaiian license plates, and I purchased one and I brought one home, and then it got lost and it's been gone for years, and my heart still aches for that license plate. And the shop I went to yesterday at the farmer's market, or the little booth, he did have a Hawaiian one, but I was like, let me try something different. So I got this one. Something that I wanted to do back when I lived in the truck camper, back when I first originally had purchased that Hawaiian license plate, is that I wanted to start a license plate collection of every place that I traveled to. I wanted to collect a license plate from there and then have like a collage on the truck camper wall. Yeah, when I saw this license plate yesterday, I was reminded of that little dream that I once had, and I'm not sure if I'm still gonna do that. I might, but for now I'm just gonna start it off with this one. I actually just went to Home Depot and I got some screws so that I can put this on the front of my van. So I'm gonna go do that right now. Okay, so no matter what type of van life you want to do, you've decided that you want to do it. Now you're looking for a van life van. There are a bunch of different kinds of van life vans that you can purchase. There are vans like mine, which are a little bit on the smaller side, kind of like a 40 Econoline, a Chevrolet G20, Starcraft, and there's those kinds of vans. Or there's the larger van life vans, Sprinters, Ram ProMasters, Ford Transits, there's those. And then there's kind of van life, but more car camping style, such as like a Honda Element or a Toyota Sienna or something like that. Just get clear on what kind of amenities you want in your van. Make a layout in your head of what you want your home to be like, based on if you're living in it part-time or full-time, or what exactly you're going to be using the van for. Once you know that in your mind, you can look for the corresponding van that is going to be able to hold everything that you need. For example, if you have a van of my size, it might not be able to fit a shower. If showering every single day is something that's important to you, you might want to go with a larger van. Also, you need to think about the van build process. Are you gonna purchase a van that is already built out? Because those can be a little bit pricey. Are you going to spend years renovating your van yourself? It's not an easy task. It's a lot of trial and error, especially if you don't have any building experience. If you've never done any kind of building like that before, it's going to be a little bit rough, okay? And I thought my van build would take a few months to build this. It took me over 2 years. Above everything else, in my van, the most important van build items that I have is heat. Electricity is very important for me. Having running lights in my van, having my toilet fan on, having my fridge, and that all comes from my solar panels, which charges my battery. Another important one is having enough water. Another one that I could not live without is my composting toilet. And then, of course, if you want your van to have a shower, you're gonna need to make sure to have a shower in there, along with enough water to supply that. So, in all, I hoped that this video helped give you some further insight into things to think about and things to try out if you are thinking of doing van life for yourself. If you have any further questions, please feel free to leave them down below and I'll get back to you on those.